Shalom, shalom. This is Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19. In Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellence, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures. And owls shall dwell there, and satrines shall dance there. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. I want to give all the praise and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakakwadash, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai. Double honors to the elder apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who rule well and teach well through the Spirit, and a mighty shalom to the hopeful elect. In the same Spirit, Lord willing, that as a whole, y'all continue in sound doctrine. Shalom to the Akwaf, the believers of this faith, which is the sisters. Lord willing, you continue to pursue your lot, which is being a loving and silent and virtuous wife. And Lord willing, Yahweh Shem Shai has mercy on the other brothers and sisters not of faith. Lord willing, this edifying, quick, straight to the point. The title of this lesson is Babylon is Running Out of Time. The kingdom known spiritually as Babylon the Great, which is America, which we see in Revelations, the 17th and 18th chapter, which today, it fully represents America. And this is in its final moments, according to prophecy. Her sins have reached unto heaven, and her judgment is drawn near. And is getting to the peak, especially when we see Revelations 13. Eventually, it's going to get worse and deceive the nations with its miracles and push forth this charagma, which is going to be pushed four corners of the earth. So when you see in Isaiah the 13th chapter, verse 19 and 22, ancient Babylon was destroyed. Technically, it was overtaken by the Persian Medes. But this prophecy extends further to Mystery Babylon, the end-time empire patterned after the old one. The same fury destruction is appointed for modern Babylon. Only thing, though, when we go into especially like the book of Daniel, ancient Babylon was taken over by the Persian Medes led by Darius. Babylon wasn't destroyed by fire. It wasn't consumed, because it said in verse 19, in Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellent, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It even put a symbolic message, like it's going to be overthrown like Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah was overthrown by fire and brimstone, which the angels made out of the elements. Ancient Babylon was not consumed like Sodom and Gomorrah. It was overtaken, right? It was overtaken by the Greeks. Sodom and Gomorrah was overtaken by fire and brimstone. America is going to be overtaken by fire and brimstone, but in the modern way, by missiles. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah, the 50th chapter, verse 31. It says, one post shall run to meet another, and one messenger to meet another, to show the king of Babylon that his city is taken at one end, and that the passages are stopped, and the reeds they have burned with fire in the mid of war are frightened, right? So the most proud nation, full of arrogance and rebellion, perfectly describes America. But who runs it? The so-called Edomites, who is the most proudest nation on the earth, right? Look what Donald Trump saying. Oh, look what I did. Oh, it never been done in history. What I did. That one single man is showing the proudness of the nation of Edom, right? Let's get another one. When you look at Isaiah 47, verse 1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Yes, ancient Babylon, but only thing though, it was overpowered by the Persian Medes. That land was conquered. So it's still going to be looking delicate and beautiful because it was ruled. It was ruled, right? So this is going into future Babylon that is tender and delicate, which we see in Revelation 17, right? And 18. So when you drop down to verse 5, it says, sit thou silent, and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. And that's America, right? What country has the Statue of Liberty? That Lady Liberty, Lady Freedom. America, right? Stem from their freedom from the European or from the British or from England, right? Which really was supposed to usher in this empire. Dropping down to verse 7, it says, and thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the later end of it. And that's the proudness of America. They believe that they won't be touched. It wasn't touched. Yes, it was touched in the time of the natives with the French, the British, right, and the so-called Americans. But we're going to say French, British, and the Spanish fighting with those that are Americans for the land of America, right? But America boasts of being the greatest nation, believing their dominance will last forever. Yet her downfall is written. Donald Duck said, there won't be no World War III. If there's no World War III, that means Babylon won't be overtaken or destroyed. But when you go to Jeremiah 51, verse 6 to 8, it says, lift up your eyes to the heavens and look upon the earth beneath. For the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment. And they that dwell therein shall die in like manner. But my salvation shall be forever, and my righteousness shall not be abolished. Hearken unto me, ye that know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my law. Fear ye not the reproach of men, neither be ye afraid of their villages, or reveling, Salaki. For the moth shall eat them up like a garment, and the worm shall eat them like wool. But my righteousness shall be forever, and my salvation from generations to generations. Right? So this is a warning for the Israelites still trapped in the spiritual Babylon to separate in spirit and prepare for deliverance. Revelations 18:5, come out of her. Revelations 18:4, come out of her. Only way we coming out of her is physically, but in the spiritual sense, you coming out of her spiritually and mentally, which right now, this grace period, right? To be delivered, you have to spiritually come out of her. Just because you were Israelite don't mean you coming out of her. So it's another picture I have on here, but I'm using this one where it's like a city in a billboard, right? Let me see if I'm about to read what it says on my other phone, if it's here. Okay, yes. It's the Statue of Liberty, is United States. And on the billboard it says, we should have listened to the prophets. And what we see throughout all scriptures, these are warnings for you Israelites, for the elect and the 2/3. The only ones that's going to take heed is the 2/3. You're still trapped in spiritual Babylon to separate in spirit and prepare for deliverance. Her sins, slavery, bloodshed, corruption, and pride are now reaching the heavens, just like Sodom and Gomorrah, just like in the time of Noah, right? Let me get it. I believe that's Genesis, the 6th chapter. This is Genesis chapter 6 in verse 5. It says, God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually, right? That their wickedness at that time reached the heavens, just like the wickedness of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? When you go to, let me see, Genesis, you got Genesis, the 18th chapter. Right here we go. When we look at Genesis, the 18th chapter, verse 16, it says, when the man rose up from thence and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And Yahweh said, shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? And it basically was saying how great Abraham was. So when you drop down to verse 20, it says, and Yahweh said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, because their sin is very grievous. So the sins and the wickedness reach unto the heavens, right? So the Lord had to make that action, because the sins, right, reach unto heaven, right? This is Nahum, the 3rd chapter, starting at verse 1. It says, woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies, robbery, and the prey departeth not. Now, in a future reference, this is Babylon the Great, America, right? Because it definitely is a bloody city, from the Northern Kingdom, right? The natives, the Hispanics, the Latinos, to the Southern Kingdom coming here. It's full of lies and robberies, right? Them taking this land, right? But they've been making lies ever since they got into power. America was built on blood, Native American genocide, slavery, and deceit. This is in history. Ain't where his brothers living on this land. That history would never fade. They talk about, you worried about slavery so much. The past is the past. You still celebrate 4th of July, Juneteenth, 9/11. History is still certain histories is still taught in school, right? Let's go to Habakkuk, or Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, verse 12 to 14. It says, woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establish a city by iniquity. Behold, it is not of Yahweh of hosts, that the people shall labor in the very fire. The people shall weary themselves for very vanity. For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of Yahweh, as the waters cover the sea. Okay? So the kingdom built on oppression will fall, so the kingdom of Yahushai can rise. Right? Verse 14, for the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of Yahweh, as the waters cover the sea. Right? The Lord's wisdom, knowledge, understanding is going to flood the earth through his children. Right? Because, of course, the men are not going to be teaching their own people. They're going to be teaching the nations the law, statutes, and commandments, our customs. And guess what? We're going to be able to see the history. We're going to have the ability to replay what was going on in the world. We're going to be able to show the nations what they have done, right? Just like right now, we're able to know history, what happened in the past, either by textbooks or Esau making freaking movies, right? Let's go to Revelations, the 18th chapter, verse 2. It says, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, it is fallen, and is become the habitations of devils, in the behold of every foul spirit, in the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her. This is spiritually, mentally. Then when Yahweh shall return physically. My people, that ye be partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and the Most High have remembered her iniquities. You don't want to be partakers of her plagues, which is those missiles that's going to make a sore destruction. This clearly points to a future empire, not ancient Babylon, that controls the nations through trade, wealth, and influence. Because when you drop down to 17, it talks about the merchants that are on the sea that watch her destruction. And influence, America fits the description exactly. Her fall is both economic and military. Total collapse before nuclear destruction. Revelation 17:5. Upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Spiritually represents America, which spreads wickedness across the earth. Revelations 18:8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is Yahweh Shemashai power, who judgeth her. Right? The fire is the nuclear destruction, the final judgment. What they say, it's the final countdown. Boom, 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 boom. The final countdown. And we're in that. You see they counting down the doomsday clock. 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter, verse 7-9, it says, 2nd Ezra chapter 6, verse 7-9. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. That whole time was symbolic to the future, which Jacob grabbing the heel of Esau is synonymous with Yahushai, truly a descendant all the way going to Yahushai, a descendant of Jacob from the loins of his son Judah, is going to be the one to grab Esau from the hill and drag him down, synonymous with Esau falling from rulership to hell, a condition, a lower estate. For Esau is the end of the world, the end of this age, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. He's the new age, because that's a new earth. The new heaven is new rulership. Okay? So Esau represents the rulers of the current world order. Genesis 27-39, right? His power structure. America and her allies is the last ruling kingdom before Yahushua returns. Time is nearly up, because if this is not the last kingdom, the truth should have never came out. But that fulfilled prophecies to give understanding of Revelations 11, verse 8-11. That's how we fully know that we're in the end times. This is Genesis 27, verse 39. It says, and Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So for Esau to have the dews of heaven, the fatness of the earth, he's going to have to break his yoke break the yoke of his brother off his neck, going into a time when Solomon fell. That's going to usher him being loose from being under subjection for that point in time. But, the blessing for Jacob was really the kingdom, the new beginning, right? But of course, in this story, Jacob, to get to the descendants of Israel, the Israelites had to be in rulership. But eventually, after the fall of Solomon, Esau went to establish his own kingdom, his own foundation. And that didn't fully come into power until the time of the Greeks. But Esau was around when the Babylonians ruled, where they were saying, raise it, destroy it, let's see it fall. When the Babylonians was taking over the land of Israel, they were there, they were in the midst. But the one point in this verse is that Esau would live by the sword in all generations of his time. He lived by the sword, but got greater over the time, especially in the Greek captivity. the Roman captivity, then the Renaissance, leading to America when they made the first bomb. So that was to basically solidify their power source. But let's go to Second Esdras. Second Esdras 15, verse 46. It says, "And thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person, woe be unto thee, thou wreck, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughter in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore, saith the power, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And the glory of thy power shall be dried up as a flower, and heat shall arise that is sent over thee." What heat is that? Speaking about the ICBM missiles. Other nations followed America's system. That's why Revelations 18, 17, all the nations had part of her drunkenness or her wickedness, right? Proving she sit as the queen. Queen is another word, which is Quean, whore of nations. But they will turn against her. Revelations, the 17th chapter, and I believe verse 15. The 10 horns shall be angry at the whore. But when you go to 2nd Esdras 16, 1 and 13, again, woe be unto thee, Babylon, in Asia. Strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow. Right? I'm not going to read all of this, but that bow goes back into the silos, the missiles. The missiles, the archer is the silo, but the bow is the missiles, Salaki, right? I'm thinking of the bending part, because when you pull the bow, it pulls back, it bends in a certain angle, and when you let it go, it gives it a certain push to the direction it has to go, which would be the silo being the bow. Being the arrow, and the bow is the missile, right? So the nation's nuclear weapons will fulfill this prophecy. 2nd Esdras, the 16th chapter, verse 1 to 13. When you drop down to 7, which I'm going to read, it says, "May one turn again the arrow that is shot from a strong archer." The archer is the silo. The arrow is the missile. The mighty Lord sendeth the plagues, and who is he that can drive them away? A fire shall go forth from his wrath, and who is he that may quench it? He shall cast lightnings, and who shall not fear? He shall thunder, and who shall not be afraid? Yahweh Shai shall threaten, and who shall not be utterly beaten to powder at his presence? The earth quaketh in the foundations thereof. How's it going to quake? Because of all those missiles. Just one missile, but all the missiles is going to make the earth shake and rumble. The sea riseth up upon waves from the deep, and the waves of it are troubled, and the fishes thereof also, before Yahweh Shai, and before the glory of his power. For strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow. His arrows that be shooting are sharp. How are they shot? By the silos, right? And the arrows are the missiles, and shall not miss. When they begin to be shot into the ends of the earth, the ends of the earth is the uttermost part of the earth. Those arrows are going to come from their direction to the western hemisphere, to the north country, right? So let's look at this point. When we look at Matthew, the classic Matthew 24, verse 6, where it says, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of war. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these things are the beginning of sorrow. All the signs Yahweh gave in that book, Matthew and in the other gospels, war, famine, earthquakes, and confusions are intensifying. These are indicators that Babylon's time is almost expired, right? Especially when you see Edomites are divided. Let's go to this point in Luke, the 21st chapter. This is Luke chapter 21, verse 24. It says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, upon the earth distress of nations and perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's heart failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth or on the earth. And the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Right? 2 Peter 3, verse 10 and 12. The day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. How is that going to happen? By the thermonuclears, the ICBM missiles, right? The nuclear fire will cleanse the earth of wickedness. So again, Revelations 18 and 4, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not the plagues, receive not of her plagues. Physically, we have to come out of here by Yahweh delivering us by the whirlwinds, the clouds, the chariots of Israel. But right now, you have to spiritually, mentally come out of here. So this is spiritually called, this is a spiritual call for the Israelites to detach from Babylon's way, spiritually, mentally, morally, before the destruction comes. Break all attachments that you have on this place. When we look at Malachi 2 and 10, arise ye and depart, for this not your rest. This does not mean get on a damn boat and let's go. Let's get on a plane. No, you want to get delivered. Did not those Israelites that was in Egypt see the miraculous deliverance? Yes. So you're going to see the miraculous deliverance, but you're going to mentally and spiritually and mentally depart from this place. Just like Wisdom of Solomon 5, 1 and 2, right? Those that have afflicted you, they're going to be amazed because we're going to stand up in great boldness because the breath of life came in us. And what's going to happen? Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such have afflicted him. Right? And what's going to happen? What's going to happen to him? Salaki. My dang phone. And what's going to happen to him? When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all they look for. They gonna see that strange salvation of those getting beamed out of here so that they won't get a taste of the plagues that's gonna happen in Babylon. That's 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 18. The righteous are gonna be scarcely saved. The elect will be delivered and exalted as Babylon is burned, right? So when you look at 2 Esdras 4 and 37, by measure have he measured the times, and they shall not go beyond their measure, right? What time was measured? The time of the rulership of Esau, man. It was all mapped out and all measured by Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, when it was going to be fulfilled. So again, by measure have he measured the times, by number have he numbered the times, and he doeth not move nor stir them until the said measure be fulfilled. Everything has a point of time. Everything. In this captivity, everything has to happen at the time the Lord wanted it and how he planned it for. Right? So America cannot extend her rule 1 second past the time Yahweh appointed. Her clock is almost at midnight. Right? 11:59 on the clock. Right? And people say, oh, we've been in here for 400 years. Man, no. We've been in the hands of the Europeans longer than that. The 400 years that brothers use in Acts, that's speaking about ancient Egypt, which had a number. But when you understand in writing, it was really 430 years, right? They would be in captivity for 130 years, but then they would come out with substance. That didn't happen until 430 years at when they got out, right? So they were still in there an extra 30 years, and eventually they got out. In between those 30 years, it was plagues after plague after plague. So this is what we're getting. This place is going to get hit with that same birth condition, where now a woman, we know that she's at her moment of bringing forth that baby, going to the doctors, having more harder pains, crazy pains. Then her water breaks. Then she thinking she's about to go in labor, but she might be in the hospital for 12 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours a day. She might even leave and then have to come back the next day and then still in there for another 6 hours. Soon as that baby come out, is simultaneously like Yahweh Shai arriving and delivering the elect at a scarce time, in a difficult time. It's going to feel like, oh man, I might not even make it. Lord willing, we are this number, man. Lord willing, you are this number. And this is the time that you want to pray more, seek the Lord more, watch these videos, meditate on them, because you're seeing Babylon shift. We're in a direction where the New World Order is about to be implemented. So I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to the one true power that always makes it possible. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Brakati Yahweh Brakati Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the elder apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well through the Spirit every time. And a mighty shalom to the hopeful elect in the same Spirit, Lord willing, that y'all continue in sound doctrine. Shalom. Shalom to the Aquaf, the sisters of this faith. Lord willing, you continue to pursue your lot, which is being a loving and silent, virtuous wife. And Lord willing, Yahweh Shemel Shai has mercy on the other brothers and sisters that's not of faith. With that, shalom, shalom, abba, abba.